All right, guys, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. My name is Eric Paulzine with 9to5 Sports. Going to be getting into the main slate game-by-game breakdown. I did say main slate. I have been doing the full slate of games, like the 16 games. That just made the video too long, and people just didn't want to click on it as much, so I'm trying to trim it down a little bit here. Once again, if you guys do appreciate this video, make sure to give a like and subscribe. That helps out the channel a lot. If you want to comment your favorite play or your favorite take from this video, that'll help out the channel a lot as well. Without further ado, let's get into it. So starting out with the Baltimore Ravens versus the New England Patriots, the Ravens are favored to win by 2.5 points. The over and under for this game is 43.5, so not that much, kind of crazy there. And I will say, just watching back that Ravens at Miami game, the defense did not look as bad as I thought they were, okay? Tua really just played an elite game. They were able to get some pressure on him, but Tua was able to feel the pocket, get out of there, and make a nice throw on the run. Easily connecting with Tua and Waddle a lot, okay? And that's just kind of the offense. Get the ball into your playmakers' hands and make them work. Okay, so I don't see this as perfect as a matchup for the New England Patriots players, but honestly, a lot of the New England Patriots offensive weapons are so cheap that you can make it work. Look at Mac Jones, priced at 5.1. And I am still saying, the Ravens defense, they are still banged up. They are still a defense that I do think we want to attack. And Mac Jones, yes, he had those back spasms that we have to worry about, but at 5.1, he should be able to hit value. He had 13.6 DK points last week. He can easily throw for another touchdown or possibly 300 yards and get to 17 DK points pretty easily. And at 5.1, that's just the play that I think I'll be making a decent amount in this game. Looking at the running backs for the Patriots, Damien Harris continues to be the most impressive of the two running backs. Now, the strange thing that happened last week is he only played in 40% of the snaps. He did have 2 targets, and like I said, was the more impressive of the two running backs. Stevenson, I'm just not seeing it too much. He has looked good, and he does look good. He actually played more snaps, but had less opportunities per snap, obviously. So just kind of strange there. I do think he is a solid running back. I just think Harris has looked better. So it'll be interesting to see what approach they go with, whether they try to use Stevenson a little bit more in the passing game as well. But really, where you want to attack the Ravens is going to be via the passing game. Now, Jacoby Myers at 5K is simply too cheap. He's a guy that saw 6 targets in week 1, was able to score 10.2 DK points. And then in week 2 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that seems like a tougher, more difficult matchup, he had 13 targets, 9 receptions, 95 yards. Okay, going against the Baltimore Ravens, he should be in a safe spot here at this price point. He should be able to 3X, get 15 DK points at this price point. It's currently questionable. We'll need to check in on that. One strange thing is that Devonta Parker has basically played, I don't want to say all the snaps for them, but a majority of the snaps for them at 90% of the snaps, team snaps, that is. Nelson Agholor last week played in 50% of the snaps, okay, but he was much more productive. Okay, he looked really good. Agholor is the reason why they won that game. Okay, 6 receptions, 6 targets, 100 yards, 110 yards, and a touchdown. Okay, you saw on every play that he was making, he was falling forward. He was playing aggressively. Okay, that catch that he made was freaking awesome. For that touchdown, freaking awesome. He made that play. That wasn't a great throw by Mac Jones. Goes over the top, makes that play. And he had a few other plays that I was just like, wow. Nelson Agholor stepping up. He was their most impressive player last week in general. So I do expect him to get a little bit more playing time, but getting 50% of the snaps, it does make it still risky. It does kind of worry you. So we did see Parker's snap count go from 100% in week 1 to 76. So maybe we see that kind of start to continue to kind of shift over, because 1 target thus far for Devonta Parker on the season, getting that many snaps is just kind of crazy there. On the flip side for the Ravens, I don't really see the point in playing any of them. Honestly, the run game should not do well in this one. J.K. Dobbins could be back. I don't know. That just seems like a stay away. Rashad Bateman really just had one big play. It was a slant play that was just a perfect play call for the defense that was there. He's fine. He's solid. If you want to play him, you can. 5.7. That's just a little bit too much for me to pay up for. We got to see if Duvernay is going to play. If he doesn't, then yeah, sure. Robinson at this price point, 3.4, could be in play. I do still think you could play Mark Andrews as well if you want to. I'm just not going crazy with it. I'm not really wanting to play any of them, okay? And maybe that line is set where it is, where the Ravens are only favored to win by 2.5 points because the Ravens are pretty banged up, okay? They've been trying to play likely a decent amount. Duvernay's questionable. James Prochet, the receiver number 3, is questionable, and then J.K. Dobbins is still questionable. So if they all sit, I guess I could see the Patriots winning. But just real quick, a solid game stack for this game, it would just be the Patriots. And this is one of my favorite stacks this week is Mac Jones, Jacoby Myers, and then Nelson Agholor. This is a very solid stack there. If you want to run it back with Demarcus Robinson, you could. I'm not going that route. All right, from there we got the Chiefs versus the Colts. The Colts have been very disappointing. So it's a little bit shocking to see them be only 5.5-point underdogs to the Chiefs. Now the game over and under for this game is set pretty high. It's set at 50.5 points, which is a little bit shocking to me as well. Like, I think the Chiefs should be able to steamroll the Colts, just given how the Colts have played. I mean, if the teams both play the way that they have thus far, like, I would see the Colts the Colts just not showing up once again, struggling, and then the Chiefs are going to be the team that you want. Like, that to me is what makes the most sense. And just speaking on that, like, Matt Ryan has just not looked good. And sure, the Chiefs defense could end up being a good get right spot for Matt Ryan, but as it sits right now, he just has not looked good, okay? And that is a huge issue to me. So for the Colts, what could help them is that Michael Pittman is expected to be back in this one. He was limited in practice. Then Alec Pierce is expected to be back in this one as well. We do want to see what the status is on Mecole Hardman as well, because if he sits, then we could see Justin Watson actually be a decent value play. I kind of joked around on Twitter saying that a lot of people, aka me, were saying that Justin Watson was the Chiefs' best receiver heading into the season because he has that great preseason. So I was kind of joking around about that. But like, honestly, he could find himself into a role if Hardman is out. Like, he is a solid receiver thus far. I personally haven't been able to see his limitations yet, probably like the Chiefs have been able to see, because when I've seen him, he's been going against backups in the preseason. Then obviously he made that great play against the Chargers there in week 2. So, potentially could be a value play if you want to go that route. Running back wise, I'm not going to be playing CEH just at 6.3. We know he's just way too priced up. Okay. He's had 2 touchdowns now. And yes, he was very efficient in week 2 against the Chargers, but he is splitting the workload with Jerick McKinnon. Actually, Jerick McKinnon outsnapped CEH by 2 snaps last week, and he is like basically $2,000 cheaper on the slate. Kind of crazy. And like, McKinnon has been fine as well. He did find a touchdown, but the big plays have just kind of been there schematically for CEH rather than when Jerick McKinnon was in the game. We could see that flip-flop where like McKinnon's in for those plays that are wide open. Okay. It's not really coming down to, CEH has made some good plays. So is McKinnon, but it's not like CEH is like making the plays are there for him to make. There's a big difference there. So, I could see that kind of just swinging the other way for McKinnon instead. Yes. So like Jonathan Taylor for the Indianapolis Colts in this game. Okay. He only ran the ball 9 times. Okay. And it really just comes down to how do they do in the first quarter? Are they still in the game in the first quarter? Because I could kind of see them having to use Nyheim Hines more than they would want to in this game. But really, you got to figure out a way to get him the ball more. The best running back in the league by far. Okay, maybe not by far, but best running back in the league. Still was highly efficient. 6 yards per carry on average last week. Only 9 touches. So like, what are you doing? Okay. The nice thing about it is we did see him get a price discount now, $900 cheaper than he was last week. And he is going against the Chiefs that have been giving up a lot of points to opposing running backs, even in the passing game as well. So maybe Jonathan Taylor gets a few more targets and receptions in the passing game. But that's kind of really it for me. Like, if you want to play Patrick Mahomes, you certainly can. I do expect Juju Smith-Schuster to have a much better game. We knew not to target him last week because of the Bryce Callahan matchup that he was going to get in the slot, and we just avoided him. And he did have a bad game. I do expect him to have a much better game this game going against the Colts. Okay, so if you want to play him, maybe more in your season-long leagues rather than in a DFS week, because at 5.5, he's not a must-play. But, in your season-long leagues, you're playing him, and you're feeling fine about it. Travis Kelce does have a good matchup, but just given the quality of like tight end value that we have on this slate, like, I see no real reason to go out of your way to play him. Now moving on to the next game, we got the Saints versus the Panthers. Now, this is pretty much a bad quarterback play. Okay, Baker Mayfield has been terrible. Okay, but real quickly, I'll touch on the game over and under. 41. That's a very low over and under. And then the spread here, or the difference here, is the Saints are favored to win by 2.5 points. Okay, so really it's on paper going to be an ugly game. Okay, Baker Mayfield, like I said, has looked terrible. He has pretty much looked like Matt Ryan, but with legs. Okay, if it wasn't for his ability to scramble, he would just be garbage, like Matt Ryan has been thus far this season, which is kind of weird to say out loud. But it's true. That's just what the film has showed us. And, Jameis Winston has not really been that much better. Okay. And he does have kind of an excuse now with his back injury. And I would kind of chalk up like Winston playing poorly last week to the Bucs defense just being very solid. Okay. Because he was able to feast against the Falcons. Really, that was one quarter in which he had a good play, where Baker just has not looked good. he has made up for it with his legs a little bit. 35 yards rushing last week and a touchdown the week before that. He's been brutal. Okay, he's missed some wide open receivers. You would hope that would get corrected. I will say, just talking about the Carolina Panthers defense, they have been very solid thus far this season, just pressure-wise, okay? They had 3 sacks total in the last game, 9 QB hits, okay? And with that, I could kind of see Jameis Winston being under pressure because he was under pressure a decent amount last week, not very capable of moving around too much with that injury as well. So maybe the Carolina Panthers are a team that you are looking at, especially if someone like Alvin Kamara sits. We got to see what the news is on Alvin Kamara because, yes, if he sits, this game kind of changes a lot. I do expect Alvin Kamara to play, which then should make all the Saints players tougher to play, but at the same time, like more efficient as plays. Like Michael Thomas, he's been getting peppered with targets, 9 and 8 targets. He has kind of just slowly but surely had good weeks in DFS. Like, I don't know if we can exactly trust it. Some of it has been TD dependent, but he has looked pretty solid. Jarvis Landry, only targeted 5 times, but still 6.5 DK points. Like, that's fine. And then Chris Olave was targeted a ton. Him and Jameis Winston just could not connect. Like, he was so close to having like a massive, like even 30 DK point day if they would have connected. Like, he could have had 2 touchdowns for like long deep plays. 13 targets. I mean, he was open. Winston just couldn't hit him. Okay, that's the issue. But honestly, what you guys are seeing here is that the biggest issue with the Saints, especially the pass catchers, are that like you could play Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, or Chris Olave. It's tough to say which one you should play, especially this week going against the Panthers, who have been pretty decent as well. Jawan Johnson, kind of cheap for a guy that's playing a lot. 7 targets last week, 5 in week 1. Like, he's okay. I don't mind him. I think there's better tight end plays that we can go with. On the flip side for the Carolina Panthers, like the only real play that I think is a standout play on this slate is kind of Shi Smith. Okay. Shi Smith, I like because, well, he's been on the field for 70% of the snaps. That's highly intriguing to me. He had 6 targets last week. Could have been a lot more. Once again, Baker Mayfield, part of the reason why I'm hating on him is because he hit or missed Shi Smith a decent amount last week. 6 targets. He is an athletic player, and I kind of expect Marshawn Lattimore to be on Robbie Anderson or DJ Moore a little bit more, which should force some targets Shi Smith's way. Now, I don't know if we can depend on that too much, but at 3K, he's a value play that I am looking at. He's a play that I think you can put in there if you want to go that route. Now, moving on into the Houston Texans versus the Chicago Bears. To me, this is an intriguing game. Okay, both teams, we know they kind of suck, I guess, if you will. The Bears kind of got lucky in week 1 with that weather game. We all kind of know that. They could have had another touchdown against the Packers, but they just aren't throwing the ball enough, okay? And so they are only 3-point underdogs to the Houston Texans. And I will say the Houston Texans have actually played pretty well. We look at that game against the Colts. They tied them, a team that everyone thought would be better than they are. And that could just be what it is. The Colts just aren't that good. And then against Denver, another team that a lot of people thought would be better than they actually are thus far. But maybe, just maybe, the Texans are much better than people thought. Maybe. We'll see. They have only given up 36 points thus far this season, which could be partly due to teams being able to run the ball on them. So last week, Denver was able to run the ball over Houston a lot. They ran the ball 31 times for 149 yards. In week 1, we saw Jonathan Taylor have over 150 rushing yards. Last week, we saw David Montgomery against the Packers have 15 rushing attempts for 122 yards total. He didn't need to get used in the passing game that much, but he still had 2 targets, was still able to contribute there. David Montgomery is this offense. He is the focal point of this offense. He is a solid, very solid running back in this league. Some fantasy experts try to bash on him because they like Khalil Herbert, who's a solid backup. But no, David Montgomery is definitely the better back. We have seen that. It's not hard to see that. Okay, David Montgomery at 5.9 since he played in that Sunday night game was not priced up given the play that he had against the Packers. Okay, he probably should be at least $500 to $800 more expensive. So we get him as a discount. To me, he's just someone that you have to lock and load and play in there this week at 5.9. That is just too cheap of a price point given the matchup. Now, on the flip side of that, I actually do like Dameon Pierce a decent amount. In week 1, he didn't play that many snaps. In week 2, that got corrected. He saw over 60% of the snaps, getting 15 rushing attempts and 1 target. He's going against the Chicago Bears, who just gave up a lot of rushing yards to Aaron Jones. Now, yes, they're able to contain A.J. Dillon on those inside runs mostly, but Aaron Jones was able to get to the outside and break some big plays. Now, yes, those are 2 of the better running backs in the league. I'm not going to give Dameon Pierce that credit yet, although he has looked good. the path to him having a good game in this game can be there. It should be a game that is close, which should mean that he is going to be on the field a decent amount, and he's at a great price point for a guy that probably is going to get right around 16 opportunities in this game. So yes, I still think Dameon Pierce is going to be firmly in play. But really, my summary of this game is that I think this is going to be a running back game. Okay. And I will say both defenses are firmly in play, although I kind of like the Texans a lot more at 2.6. Like, look at what happened to Justin Fields last week. He did not pass the ball that much, guys. He had 11 total attempts, 12 dropbacks, but was sacked 3 times. The Texans can easily get home. Okay. The Texans actually hit Wilson 7 times and was able to sack him 3 times last week against the Denver Broncos. So the Texans defense is actually one of those sneaky finds that I found on this slate. So maybe you can even go Texans D. Now I know that's kind of contradictory there to have David Montgomery and then Texans defense, but it should be a running back game. So I don't hate that too much there. You could easily go with that. And I will just say it does feel like this could be a really solid get right spot for Darnell Mooney, who just hasn't been targeted that much. He's been on the field for 94% of their offensive snaps thus far. The targets just haven't been there because while they haven't been able to drop back too much, very strange offensive flow thus far. I expect that to get corrected. Maybe they come out and get him 2 targets right away on the first drive because they need to. If they want to have a good offense or even score some points this season, they need to get Darnell Mooney the ball a little bit more. So I could see this being like a get right spot for him. All right, after that, we got the Buffalo Bills versus the Miami Dolphins, a game that everyone is excited to watch. But honestly, guys, like the Fins being 5.5 point underdogs doesn't seem correct. Like I would still give the Bills a strong chance to win by more than a touchdown. Okay, the over and under for this game is set at 52.5, which is very strong. And yes, we know that Tua Tagovailoa did have a very solid game. Like he played elite against the Ravens. Now, yes, it was the Ravens defense that was banged up, but he was very impressive. Like we shouldn't be knocking him for that. Still, if these two teams play the same way that they have for the first 2 weeks, the Buffalo Bills are going to blow them out because the Bills have just been that good. And the Miami Dolphins still gave up a lot of points to the Baltimore Ravens. A lot of points, okay? So at the very least, you get a quarterback who is just as good or the exact same as Josh Allen with a little bit better weapons with Gabe Davis back, with Stephon Diggs there. Like, he should still be able to go out and have a good game. So I do worry that Miami will just be a little bit outmatched in this game. Now, I will say, like, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle both looked elite. So, like, yes, they could have big games. But really, the one play that I am intrigued with the most is the starting running back, Raheem Moster. See what I did there? Starting running back. Last week on these videos, I came out and said, I wouldn't be shocked to see Raheem Mostert get more of a workload because he was the most impressive running back for the Miami Dolphins. And sure as shit, we saw it happen in week 2. Personally, I think it makes sense. They want to play with speed. They want to get him the ball. And honestly, he looked really good last week. This is a game in which I could see the Ravens just saying, hey, we are not going to keep everything in front. We want Tua to try to throw the ball downfield. We want him to underthrow passes to Tyreek Hill. Because, well, a lot of the production last week came on short to intermediate routes to Tua and to Waddle. Like, they are just trying to get the ball into their playmakers' hands. So with that, they could be playing up a little bit more, which, yes, could shut down some runs. But really, I think that could lead to 1 or 2 big runs from the running back position, which would, I think, be Raheem Mostert, or maybe it's like an RB screen. Like, I could see a big play happen for Raheem Mostert. Now, obviously, this is a game in which you want a game stack. I think this is kind of a cheap way to go and do that. And then, yes, Josh Allen, obviously just a core play. If you can afford to pay up for Josh Allen, I do think that you do that. He's had 33 and 32 DK points, and that should continue going against the Miami Dolphins, who were just torched by Lamar Jackson. Like, I just do not see that changing. You should be playing him if you can. And if you're playing him, yes, Diggs should be able to go out and have a good game as well. The Fins were just beat up by Rashad Bateman. Yes, a lot of that came on one slant play, a big slant play. Like, Xavier Howard didn't play poorly, okay? He gave up like 4 receptions and like 90 yards and a touchdown. And like, I think it was like 80% of that came on that slant play to Rashad Bateman, which was just man coverage, zero coverage, I think, cover 0. And it was a great play call. Great scheme play call. So, like, yes, Diggs could be hindered a little bit, okay? maybe he only gets us 20 DK points. Okay. Still, he's very cheap for a guy that's got 9 and 15 targets, 29 DK points, and 47 DK points. Obviously, he's not going to score 3 touchdowns again. And honestly, if we're talking about regression, he's probably just not going to score a touchdown in this one, but he should still be very productive in a very easy matchup. And then Gabe Davis, I actually really like. Yes, he wasn't targeted that much, but he was on the field a lot in week 1. He should be back fully healthy, ready to go in this one. And at 6.3 in a game that we probably do want to game stack, Gabe Davis makes a lot of sense. And then sure, if you guys want to throw in one of Hill or Waddle, you can do that. And even still, you could easily still like kind of put them into your builds. Yes, we're getting limited by where we can go with this, but let's just finish the build, just kind of stacking this game. Okay, so like this build isn't complete, and maybe we would adjust it a little bit, but Josh Allen's in there, Mostert's in there, Tony Jones Jr. I just kind of threw in there just in case Alvin Kamara sits, maybe he has a good game. Diggs, Gabe Davis, Waddle, Forsett, whatever, min-price guy that played 50% of the snaps for the Chiefs, whatever, that's okay. Then we get Hill, and then just the cheapest defense I could find, the Lions defense. Like, let's just say this game goes bonkers, 30 DK points, 15 DK points, 20, 20, 20, 20. Like, you could see a path where this lineup is hitting close to 200 points. You would try to figure out the other discounted plays a little bit more from there. But yes, it's a game that I do think you can game stack, and you probably should be trying to game stack. The problem with trying to game stack the Miami Dolphins versus the Buffalo Bills is that we get the Detroit Lions versus the Minnesota Vikings, a game that I also really love on this slate as well. All right, so looking at the Lions versus the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the game over and under is set at 53 points. Obviously, this is a game that we're going to want to target. Okay, the Vikings are favored to win by 6 points. And honestly, guys, I might just go with the Lions to win that game at plus 205. Okay, the Lions have been very impressive. And if we just want to compare the Eagles game, okay, the Eagles game in week 1, the Lions played the Eagles. It was 35-38. Then obviously, yes, we're kind of cherry picking here because primetime Kirk Cousins showed up, which isn't a good thing. But the Vikings just lost the Eagles 7-24. Okay, and really, against the Packers, the Vikings should have given up more points. It was kind of just the Packers choking rather than the Vikings playing well. And we've had 2 weeks in which the Lions have played well. They just beat the Washington Commanders. So like, I kind of think the Vikings are not as good as everyone thinks. And the Detroit Lions are just a solid team. They're not great. And honestly, if you kind of compare the two, they're very similar teams, really. You look at Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins, very similar style quarterbacks. Obviously, Kirk Cousins a little bit better there. You look at the two running backs, like DeAndre Swift and Dalvin Cook, like both of them are pretty elite running backs. Obviously, Swift always is a little bit banged up. So is Dalvin Cook a little bit. Always had those injury concerns, especially early on in his career. Both big play backs. Both have solid backup running backs in Jamal Williams and Alexander Madison. And then if we just want to look at the passing weapons, the Detroit Lions have DJ Chark, St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, who's pretty good, and then TJ Hawkinson as the tight end play. Like, he is very solid. Then you look at the Vikings, obviously Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne's all right, and Irv Smith Jr. Like, these teams are very similar. So that's my long way of saying that I think this game is going to come down to whichever defense shows up the most, because these two offenses are both very sharp. And then just talking about DJ Chark, I kind of mentioned him. Yes, he is priced up too much. Okay, 5.1 is too much for him, but this is just due to the fact that, one, he just missed catching an underthrown touchdown pass, and then Jared Goff also missed him for what could have been another touchdown play. He only had 4 targets, but easily could have had 3 more catches because Jared Goff missed him on another kind of easier pass and catch. Okay, so like, he could have had a much better game than he did have. And obviously, this is a game that you do want to stack, so maybe you potentially play a low-owned DJ Chark. I do think you are going to try to fit Justin Jefferson into your builds. Okay, he didn't have the best game, and honestly, he was beating, was it Darius Slay a lot? Like, it was just that Kirk Cousins sucked, and he wasn't throwing the ball correctly to him on those routes. Okay, it was just like staring down Kirk Cousins the whole time, which when you're guarding Justin Jefferson, you shouldn't be able to do. Kirk Cousins just had a terrible game. Primetime Kirk Cousins. We've seen that time in and time again. Jefferson still had 12 and 11 targets thus far. Like, that is, I love that. So we're playing him. And then St. Brown as well. St. Brown, 12 targets in each of the first 2 games. Vikings defense has been pretty poor. Like, I think you can just play those two and feel good about it. From there, like TJ Hawkinson, a little bit banged up. We have to see what the news is on him. Irv Smith Jr. is going to be a phenomenal play, I think. In week 1, they're kind of working him back. He was a little bit banged up in the preseason. Didn't play that many snaps. In week 2, played more snaps. And I think in week 3, he has a strong chance to play like 65 to 70% of the tight end snaps. He was still able to see 8 targets, 5 receptions, 1 touchdown, 14.6 DK points. And honestly, he could have easily had another touchdown as well. Primetime Kirk Cousins once again. Like Irv Smith at this price point is just a very strong price point, especially for a game that could be a shootout. Now, if you want to play Jared Goff, I like him a little bit more, just given his price point being $900 cheaper than Kirk Cousins. And then running back wise, like Dalvin Cook could easily have a get right spot. I've spoken about that a decent amount. That is kind of week 3 is the get right spot for a lot of teams. They're like, oh shoot, Dalvin Cook looked good in week 1 against the Packers, and then against Philly, they just kind of forgot about him. Now, he still had 12 total opportunities, 6 targets, and I think those targets could be there for him again. He is priced up a little bit too much. That makes you worry about him, but he could easily go for 20 DK points. If you are trying to game stack, he'd be someone that I think you could play as well. Like just a very solid game stack here. All right, moving on to the next game, we got the New York Jets versus the Cincinnati Bengals, 2 teams that are both very similar as well, and I'll get into that here in a second, but the Bengals are favored to win by 6 points, and the over and under for this game is set at 45. Okay, I actually like the Jets once again to win at plus 220. Okay, and let's just break this down. Like we all remember last postseason when the Bengals were outplayed in every single playoff game, yet still found a way to win. Okay, that same strategy has not worked out for them thus far this year. They've came close in a couple of games, but being outplayed by the opponent and trying to get lucky in the fourth quarter, that's just not a great strategy. Okay. And the Jets actually did the Bengals strategy to perfection last week, guys, where they were outplayed the whole game, but somehow figured out a way to get lucky and win the game. A blown coverage late to Corey Davis, a lucky onside kick, and Joe Flacco just somehow getting it done. Like, just strange there. Okay, it really is. But still, the Jets are much improved. These 2 teams are just very similar, where the defenses are a lot better than I think a lot of people would have expected. And if you look at the offensive weapons, both very similar, okay? Yes, Joe Mixon is the stud running back for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I should do stud running back. Yards per carry has been terrible, okay? That's the offensive line just is not good right now, and that's the biggest issue. But looking at the Jets, like Breece Hall, very productive thus far. They're using him perfectly. And then Michael Carter, the RB number 1 in this offense, the starting running back, playing a lot of snaps. Also very productive as well. Still getting targeted a lot. Like he's very cheap as well, guys. Like 5.2 for, let's just say, a floor of 5 targets, 12 total opportunities. Like obviously we're chasing the targets more here, but pretty cheap there. Okay. But both very solid running backs. Okay. Now we look at the receivers as well. I'll talk about the Jets first. Like Garrett Wilson, I came out here and said last week, like, man, Wilson was much more impressive than I originally thought. He was very good. Okay. And once again, the Jets saw that and they got him the ball a lot more. Not really shocking because he was very eye-popping in week 1. But what I also saw this last week watching film, Elijah Moore was open a ton. So once again, I think the Jets are going to go back, watch the film, and be like, damn, Moore was open a lot. Like, what was going on there? We need to get him the ball more because he was wide open on a lot of plays. Now, some of those just ended up being Garrett Wilson was also open as well, but Moore could have had a much better game. Okay, he really could have, and they kind of just missed him on a few plays. 5 targets, that should have been at least 9. Honestly, guys, like, he was open so much. And the big thing with Moore is he is playing a lot as well. So we still do want to target him. But the thing is, Corey Davis is a solid NFL receiver. Okay, he would be the receiver number 2 in a lot of NFL offenses. Had a very good game again last week. Minimal work, but still played good. Then Braxton Berrios, he's just getting used correctly as an offensive weapon. Like this offense is actually sneaky good, and I'm so excited to watch it once Zach Wilson is back in the offense because he is much more of a running quarterback. And honestly, like sure, Flacco's been playing well, but like the Ravens D not that good, and in Cleveland, I don't really get how that happened. Honestly, it was kind of strange, but maybe their defense just isn't as good as we thought. Okay, we'll probably see that tonight when he goes up against Mitchell Trubisky, when that D goes up against Mitchell Trubisky. I'm recording this on Thursday night. Then on the flip side, obviously the Bengals, 3 deep at receiver. Jamar Chase, one of the best receivers in the league. T. Higgins, one of the best second receivers in the league. And then Tyler Boyd, an amazing slot receiver. And even looking at the tight ends on both teams, like Hayden Hurst, solid starting tight end. And then Tyler Conklin, very underrated. Been getting used a lot. Like I like this team and I like this game stack as well, is what I'm trying to get at, because it is easy to game stack. You easily go Tyler Conklin, who's playing about 90% of the snaps for the Jets, getting 9 and 7 targets. Like I like that a lot. Let's put him in there. Like I said, Elijah Moore was open a lot. 5K is a little bit too much to pay up for him, but I don't mind that. And then you could easily go Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I could see those guys having huge games, having big blow-up games. If you guys want to play one of the running backs in this game, you could. Maybe Michael Carter with that passing upside in that playing time. Maybe you go Joe Burrow thinking he is in a get right spot. And we still have a lot of salary left over to work with what we want to. If you want to go Garrett Wilson, I guess you could. But you still would have a lot of salary left over to make some slight adjustments with how you see fit. Like, this is a very solid base stack for this game. Now, I'm not sure about the stackability of this next game with the Las Vegas Raiders and the Tennessee Titans, but both teams are in kind of get right spots as well. So the over and under for this game is set at 45.5, with the Raiders expected to win at 1.5 points. Okay. And I do think, like, Derek Carr going against the Tennessee Titans, that is intriguing to me. You know, he played okay against the Chargers DFS wise, almost scoring 17 DK points. Against the Cardinals, a little bit of a letdown, only scoring about 19 DK points, but this is going to be his best matchup thus far this season. So given the amount of times he's passing, obviously around 38 passing attempts, this is a pass first offense. And at 5.9 to get Derek Carr in a great matchup with Waller, with Adams in that offense, maybe Hunter Renfro's out, and that could worry us, but he is at a cheap price point in which, if he goes for like 25 DK points, wouldn't shock us. And at this price point, that is something I don't want to miss out on. So I am going to be playing him in some GPPs. And then just talking about, like, yes, if you can afford to fit Devonta Adams into your builds, I think that you do. Had a little bit of a lackluster game in week 2. I expect that to get corrected. But really, the play in this game would be Matt Collins, especially if Hunter Renfrow has to sit in this one. Matt Collins has been playing a ton. He is their outside receiver. He's the receiver number 2, and he has been getting like 80% of the snaps there, which is a lot. Okay. In week 1, not targeted that much. Okay, it's a great defense. Week 2 against the Cardinals, 8 targets, 5 receptions, 66 yards. Given the matchup with the Titans, a team that just got blown out, defensively, they're not good. We know that. Like, Matt Collins just makes a ton of sense as a value play. Like, the route to him, or the path to him getting a productive day in DFS is not that hard to see happening. Like, it could easily happen. I do think this is going to be a get right spot for Derrick Henry. Then they're going to go back, watch the film, and just be like, all right, we need to feed him. You know, in week 1, had a solid game, just didn't score a touchdown or like break a big run. You know, we're not too worried about that. Week 2, obviously a tough matchup. No one was excited about Derrick Henry in that game. The thing with Derrick Henry is if you hit him in the backfield behind the line of scrimmage, just a terrible running back. Once he gets to the line of scrimmage, tough to take down. He's been that running back his whole career. Okay, that did not change in the first 2 weeks. Okay, you ask a bunch of people, either you're like pro Derrick Henry or anti Derrick Henry. It's the same player, guys. He just is. Okay, I could tackle him behind the line of scrimmage. If you get him to the line of scrimmage, I'm getting my ass blown up though. Okay, that is just like Derrick Henry. Honestly, it's strange, but he's like such a big bodied running back that it just takes a while for him to get going. He's like a freaking train. Literally, it takes a while to get going, but once he gets up to speed, boom, stay out of the way, you know? And so I do expect him to get a lot of rushing attempts in this game. You want to talk about what Vegas gave up last week? The Raiders gave up last week. They have 28 carries, 143 yards, and 5.1 yards per carry. Okay? Derrick Henry, I could easily see getting that basically exact same stat line, like 25 carries, 100 yards, a touchdown. So I do like him as a play. He is priced up, though, and that's the nervous part. Josh Jacobs in a great matchup against the Titans as well. If you guys want to play him, you can. I think that's a fine play. Given that price point, it's a price point that I really like as well. But that's really it for this game. Moving on into the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Washington Commanders. The over and under for this game is set at 47, with the Eagles favored to win by 6.5 points. The bet that I want to make in this game is going to be the over. I think this is going to be a higher scoring game. Okay? And really, all of them are in play. Now, I don't think we need to play Carson Wentz. Jalen Hurts is priced up a little bit too much, but you could certainly play him. I could certainly see him getting 20 DK points. Antonio Gibson, a little bit priced up. In a soft matchup, he could have a productive day. I don't expect that. Same thing for Miles Sanders. Like, these two running backs could make some big plays. I don't want to chase that too much. I'd much rather chase the pass catchers in this game, because that is where the intriguing part of this game comes down. So AJ Brown, they didn't really need to use him that much last week. He still had 8 targets and still was able to score 11.9 DK points. In week 1, in a closer game in which they weren't trying to kill the clock, 28.5 DK points, 13 targets, like very productive, 7.3, a little bit priced up, but I don't mind him as a play. Devonta Smith, given the game time of this game, being a Monday Night Football game, they didn't get a chance to price correct him, okay? Because in week 1, he didn't have a good game. DraftKings probably didn't realize that Washington was a pretty easy matchup. Had 7 targets last week, kind of a correction game, 15 DK points. Like, I could easily see him hitting 3x once again if you're game stacking this game, which I think is a decent idea. You could easily play Devonta Smith, who I think will have a better game as well. Tight end wise, Dallas Goddard has been productive. I don't expect him to have a major game in this one. Maybe you stack it back, run it back the other way with someone like Logan Thomas, who has seen his snaps increase from 60 to 70% of the snaps. Targets are going to be there. He hasn't really looked impressive, but the usage and the workload has been there. Has averaged 10.1 DK points thus far through 2 games. Really just only playing him in a game stack. And then guys, Curtis Samuel just simply too cheap. He is their number one weapon in this offense thus far. 11 targets in week 1, 9 targets in week 2, only 1 rushing attempt last week, but it was a 20-yard run. Curtis Samuel has kind of been the focal point of this offense, and we are getting the focal point of this offense at 5.1. That's highly intriguing to me. Like, he should be their highest priced player. So this is kind of strange. I think we can take advantage of that price point as well. So you can see like a pretty decent game stack there. Obviously, you'd probably want to fit Jalen Hurts in there game stack wise, but I like that a lot. So from there, guys, I don't really want to touch on this game or the next game as well, the Packers versus the Bucks. Now, the Packers versus the Bucks, there's just a lot of players banged up right now, currently questionable, that I think it'd be a waste of breath for me to talk about it, because we just need to wait and see on the injury news. Okay. Most likely going to be a running back game in that one. But the Jaguars versus the Chargers, that Chargers defense seems to be for real. So I don't really want to chase any of the Jaguars. And with Justin Herbert being banged up, I worry about the weapons there. And if Keenan Allen sits, Austin Eckler would be a play that I still like. He should get a lot of targets. He should get used a lot. In this game, he should kind of be the focal point of this offense for that game. And also, if Austin Eckler sits, I do like Josh Palmer as well as a value if you want to go that route. Another game that I think you could go out in game stack is actually going to be the Los Angeles Rams versus the Arizona Cardinals, a game that I really like. The over and under for this game is set at 48.5, which I think could be higher. The Rams are favored to win by 3.5 points. Okay, so I'm going to bet the over. I'm not going to bet on which team is going to win. And like I said, I'm pretty excited for this game. It's very easy to stack. You got Matthew Stafford at 6.5, a great price point. He had a bounce back game last week. Doesn't need to cut down on the interceptions, but had a strong game against Atlanta. This is going to be an easier matchup going against the Cardinals. I don't think we need to play any of the running backs, although if James Conner does sit, maybe that opens up a path for Eno Benjamin. Williams people like as well, but I kind of like Benjamin a little bit more. Either way, they're just okay plays. Really what you want to do is you want to play Cooper Kupp, and then like Ben Skoranek, I still don't mind at 3.4. He was used as a fullback for them on a few plays, which was strange. I'm like, who is that guy? Skoranek in there. And that's probably why he had a high snap count. But just a cheap play in which you're trying to game stack. Like, he could catch a touchdown, kind of break the slate, if you will. I don't mind that as a play, only a game stacking play. And then on the flip side, like, the Rams have struggled to stop receivers, okay? And I do see a path where Jalen Ramsey is maybe shadowing Marquise Brown, and he doesn't have a great game, but he has been playing 90% of the snaps for the Cardinals. That is a lot. And he did have 11 targets last week, still 6 receptions. Kyler Murray was just missing him. He was off for a little bit of the game. Like, Marquise Brown could have had a much bigger game. I would say it was more Kyler Murray's fault than Marquise Brown's fault. And that should be something, if true, that should get corrected. On the flip side, like, Ray Dortch went from 90% of the snaps to about 70% of the snaps, which I think is where we'll see him at. And that really came due to like Zach Ertz being healthy and getting a little bit more snaps. But Greg Dortch still should be in for a solid spot here. 4.3, again, 70% of the snaps. Probably going to get a few more targets in this one than he did in week 2. A fine price point play if you're trying to game stack this game. But really, I do like Tyler Higbee as well. Like, Tyler Higbee to me is an easy play on this slate. Priced at 4.5. He's got 9 and 11 targets, basically not leaving the field, playing over 90% of the snaps for them. So easy play there. Like, this is a very solid game stack. If you guys want to play Marquise Brown, you could do that as well. So the last game on this slate is going to be the Falcons versus the Seahawks. Okay, the Falcons have been a very impressive team thus far. Okay, guys, I don't really get the over and under for this game, or the odds for this game. So the Falcons are expected to lose by 1 point. That's what Vegas has it set as, and I love that. I'm just hammering that bet. I like the Falcons a lot. Sure, the Seahawks are at home, and maybe that's why it's set that way, but the Falcons have been pretty good. Against the Saints, lost by 1 point. Really should have won that game. That was unfortunate. And against the Rams, could have won that game as well. They were a couple of plays in the red zone in the first quarter away from winning that game. They really, you could argue they outplayed the Rams. You could argue that, okay? Like, if they make those touchdowns in the red zone early on in that game, and against an easier matchup, you would kind of expect them to be able to score on those plays, heck, make a field goal on those plays. So, I like the Falcons a lot, betting-wise, in this game, okay? And I will say the only real play, though, that I really love is actually Marcus Mariota going against the Seahawks. This is an easy matchup that he should be able to dominate against. Okay, he had 20 DK points against the Saints, a good defense. And then he had 16.4 DK points against the Rams, which I consider a good defense as well. He's had 18 rushing attempts thus far, and this is a great matchup. Like, he should be able to take advantage of this and have a great matchup. So he is one of my favorite quarterback plays on the slate. From there, like, I'm curious to see what Tyler Algier will do in this game, if he'll play more. 10 rushes for 30 yards. That's okay. Drake London continues to look good. Not playing him in this game. I could see like Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf having a good game, and they're both priced down a decent amount. Maybe you could do a sneaky game stack here, and maybe this is the Kyle Pitts breakout game that everyone's been wanting. Okay, I didn't watch it back, but I would assume that he was somewhat shadowed by Jalen Ramsey a little bit, or like the defensive focus was on him. But honestly, guys, Drake London was just open more. Like, Kyle Pitts is a little bit overrated. I think people are realizing that. But like, this is a spot where he could have a good game if you wanted to chase that. But that is all I have for you guys for this video. That's a lot of coverage there. I try to break it down a lot faster this time. So hopefully we accomplish that. Thanks for watching, guys. Let's have a good main slate. And as always, guys, let's keep cashing.